Okay, so good afternoon, guys. Yeah, so welcome to another class, right? So today we are going to be building a to-do application, right? More like a task stuff though, and then we use that to learn a bit more stuff on Flutter, a bit more about widgets, and how to kind of perform certain actions, right? So we're looking at, having to just create a task, how we can delete a task and the likes, right? And then if we have enough time, we'll get to also look into local storage, right? And how we can actually store things locally so that our data is actually persisted when you actually close the application, and come back to it. You get to also see, the notes or the tasks that you have was actually saved, right? So there are a few things you guys are actually going to learn, right, in today's class. So let's just get right to it. So I'm still using our project, right? I haven't actually switched, so I don't want to be creating a lot of project applications. But of course, you can actually create stuff because you need to push stuff. You need to build your some of these. You need to have separate projects so you can actually push them to your repository to actually show you done stuff, right? I think we'll hopefully let's see, maybe we can talk about this in our next class for some of us who are not familiar with this, right? So this was we stopped at the form application, right? So I just created a folder and just moved that there, and then we're going to focus on our to do, or maybe let's just call it tasks, right? Maybe just call it tasks. Let's call it tasks app, right? Yeah, let me just call it that. So to do, let me just call it task app. Yeah. Refresh that. Okay, that's fine. So let's do some basic UI stuff, right? So just follow me, right? If you're coding along, well, try to be a bit fast, right? If you're coding along, if not, you can just take time to listen and you can do your coding later. And then, of course, at any point you're not clear about something, just drop a message on the chat and I will see it and attend to it. Okay. So let's start. So we have our main dot dart, right? I just had to set things up. So so we have our material app. These are main, right? Of course, I don't even need to explain what I have stuff here. So the only thing I'm going to do, or is just to pass in a different, more like the primary screen, right? The screen I want to be launched with respect to this application. I think before what we were using was the form, right? But now we're going to use this form, right, which I just created, which is what is actually being used. But that should actually be this folder. So let me just move that, right? Refactor that. Okay, yeah. So basically just have what we have here, just a scaffold and then an arc bar. Okay, so that's just the basic thing. So let's close out things that we do not need. We used from our last class. Okay. Okay, so yeah, this is good. We don't need this dependency of import. So yeah, we just work with this. So let's start. So the first thing first is, we want to create. Let's just see. Let's just do basic UI, right? And then kind of do some stuff. So I'm going to now. This is my scaffold. It's actually white. So I want to kind of use a different color. So background color. So let me see. Colors dot. Um, let's see, amber. Let me just save that and then let's see what this gives us. So this gives us this. Well, I can just move on this and just kind of move down here. See if you can choose. I don't really know what color to use though. Does anybody have any color suggestion? I don't really know what color to use. Okay, maybe we'll just use this. I just want to use something a bit darker. So let me just, okay, well, this is not that bad, right? Let's just start with this. We're not really doing serious. So it's not like we have a design somewhere, right? So some of these things are just going to come from my head and your head if you actually decide to, contribute. Uh, so now for the text. So part of the things about the text, of course, let's see, our app bar, I kind of don't want our app bar to be white. Let me give a background color. Now I want our app bar to kind of be the same, almost be the same color as this, almost same, right? Um, so if I just save this, right, we should have that, yeah. So, but let me just make it a bit, uh, a bit lighter. Let's see, just a bit lighter. Okay, yeah, just a bit lighter. Then for the text, I can just let's do some styling because of course I want the um color of the text to be white. So colors dot white. Yeah. So let's add the comments here first. To improve performance. Let's see what we have. Okay. Let's refresh that, save that. Okay, yeah. Oh, not that bad. But if you don't like it, well, choose your own color when you're gonna design yours. Okay, so the next thing I want to do, right? Now since we're going to be creating tasks, right? I'm going to be kind of seeing a list of tasks. Okay. Now I'll go to, so these are background, right? These are scaffolds, are done with our app bar, right? Now for the body, um, so let's say let me just show you, let me just show you something, right? So I'll use that to learn. So there's what we call a list style, which of course you have used, right? Now it has a bit of, stuff that you can actually, get to. So we want to create a list type. Well, you can just say, so let's see, what do we have here? We have a lot of things, right? Leading is a widget, right? I could say the leading, um, a checkbox. Yeah, I need a checkbox. Right now, the checkbox actually takes two basic things, right? Which are required. The value, right? The value there is either true or false. That means has it been checked or has it not been checked? Okay, that's just what the value is. For now, I'm just going to say true. Okay, just for demo purposes. And unchanged is if you pass in a function, it expects a what function that will return true or false. And it's called when the value of the checkbox what should actually what change. So for now, I don't want to do anything, right? So I'm just going to pass in an empty function, right? I don't want to do anything for now. Okay, so this is basically what we have for the leading. Now, what other this is we have, right? We have a lot of things, right? So I could say like the text color, the text, right? Or rather title, which is a text. And let me say register for KodeCamp 4.0, right? So let me just save this and then let's see what we have. So you can see this is basically what we have, right? We have this checkbox and then we have this text, right? And the text was, of course, it's using its default color, right? So we can actually do some, work on that. So there are a lot of things you can actually do the styling, right? For the text, you can, what's it called? You can decide to just do sorry, right? Text style, and then the color. So colors dot white. So let's say colors dot white. Yeah, so let's save that. Okay, so that kind of gives us this. So, but it's kind of not looking the way I would want it. So let's just do a bit of stuff. Let's say I add a padding to this to kind of just, you know, but we're not really seeing anything per se. It's not based on and that's because of the background, right? That's because of the background. So, what I can do is, kind of wrap this in a container, right? Now, I could just wrap this in a container such that the container can take a padding of this. I'm just going to take out this. Let me just copy this and then I'll remove this widget because there's no need having those, okay? So this is a padding and then a background color. So let's even just do something. I need to give it a background color. So that's decoration, right? So and then box decoration. So in our box decoration, I can actually put in a lot of there are a lot of things, right? That I can pass in the box decoration, the color, and a lot of that. So for the color, um, so let's say, okay, let me just look for trouble. Okay, colors dot white. Now, of course, then let me change this to blue, and let's save that. So let's see what we have. So this is what we have, right? But another thing is, this stuff is just kind of touching the edges. So, well, we can also now give this a padding, let's say of 24, right? That will kind of just give an external listen. So this is what we now have. The corner radius, we have these sharp edges. So let's just do something about that. Um, that's inside our decoration, right? Inside our decoration, we have this property called border radius, and then say border radius dot circular, and I could just say 12, and then save that. That kind of give us this, feel, right? So let me just take out, now if I take out this padding on this container, right, you notice that the whole of these guys kind of just, closes up a bit, right? So this is actually fine. Now this checkbox, of course I don't like this color, right? I would prefer so let me just add const to every necessary place so that's okay. So on the list style, you can actually decide what the checkbox active color should look like. Let me see if I can remember. Check. Okay, so let's see. We selected text color, trailing. So we have a lot of properties, right? That we can actually use. Now there's I think there should be. I think maybe I'm out of. Okay, yeah, sorry. Yeah, I was actually out of the. So this inside the checkbox, right? Active color. So if it's active, let's just for now, just to put show what we are doing, do what black, so you can see that, right? And the reason you're seeing this is because it's actually what active we passed it through. If I change this to false, right, you see it becomes unselected. Now I can't actually click to select and change it, but we'll do that, right? So what we want to do is I want to be able to see a list of tasks, right? This is assuming this, I just created this one, but of course we want to be able to create this dynamically. And since we are going to display a list here, right? We can't actually start duplicating all these, right? Now, from here to here, right? We need more of this. So of course, as far as list is concerned, right? We're going to be using a list view builder. Okay, we're going to be using a list view builder. So now, since you notice that we're going to have to reuse this, okay, we're going to have more of this. So it's a reusable stuff. So we need to create a separate widget, right, for this. Okay, what do I mean? So let me just cut this. Now we have list view builder, right? Of course, you've used this. Uh, So item count, for now, let me just assume it's 3. I'm just passing that in. Now for the item builder, it takes in two things, a context and an index. So let's say I want to return this, which is everything uh, I just did, right? I'll save that. Okay. So you see, it's giving me 3 of it. Right? It's giving me what 3 of it. So, but this is too much code, right? You can see this is actually a lot. So, one of the things you try to do is try to create reusable widgets so that your code doesn't actually get too long. Okay. So what do I want to do? I want to just abstract this to a separate widget. Now, one of the ways you can do it is to click on the top level widget. Here is padding. I will just click on this bulb and you can see this extract widget. Now, this will not always work. If sometimes your widget is dependent on something outside of this class, sometimes it may not actually work and it will tell you why. Okay, but this is not really dependent on anything. So you can see I can extract this and give it a name. So I'm going to call it task widget, right? I'll just call it what task widget. And you can see, of course, this is a class, so I shouldn't have used a small letter also, so it should be capital. So I'll just double click, select it, and hold Shift F2 to rename everything. You understand? And that will just do the renaming everywhere. So now I can now take this out of here, right? So I'm just going to create a file. So I'll get a folder called util so that I'm going to put in any widget that I need, any reusable widget. So this one is for task widget.dart. So I'm just going to take this class here, this widget class, and I'll move it into this, right? So we need to import a few things like the material widgets, and then that's basically that. Okay, and then of course we'll import this, right? We have now moved it, so I'm just going to import this. So I'll just save that, and that we are good, right? Okay, so okay, Dele is saying, please can you step back a bit to the beginning of extracting? That's a bit far. What I did, right? I'll just show you. When you go to the top level widget that you want to, extract, and you see this bulb here, just click on extract widget. That's all. Okay, and then you rename it. Or if you don't want to do that, another thing you can do is just copy from here down to the end, cut it, create a new file, and paste it there, and then call it. That's just another way to do that. Okay, whichever way works. Okay, so well, there's too much distance between this thing, and you can see. And the reason that is so is because let's see here. So in this container, we have this padding, right, of 24, and this applies to all, both top, left, top, bottom, left, right. Okay, so it's fine for us to have the padding at the left, right, and top, but bottom, we don't really want that. So what I will do is I'll say add insert from, you have this LTRB, right, from left to right, or here, what you're basically going to do, you now have to pass in four arguments, right? L is left, so I'll say 24.0, right? So it's not a named argument, so you're free to just pass in this. Top is 24. Sorry, I wanted to just copy this. Top is 24. Right is 24. Bottom, so we don't want anything bottom, so I'm just going to say 0 and save that. You see that, so this kind of just pushes things up. So it's either you do this, or there's also another end insert of only, right? Only. So this one uses named arguments. So you have to now say, okay, fine, only the left, right? Only the top, and only the bottom should be padded. Every other thing is not important. So when I say that, you still have the same thing, right? Okay, I think I did I use bottom instead of, okay, sorry, left, so right. Yeah, we don't need bottom. Okay, so this corner radius is kind of too big. It's too much. Let me just do 10. Of course, it's preference, right? But personally, I can just go to 8. So it's preference, whichever one you want to use. Okay, so yeah, we have this, right? So let's just try to finish the UI. So back here we have our view builder, right? Then another thing I want to use, I need a floating action button to, kind of trigger a creation of a to do. Okay, so it's a property of the scaffold. So say floating action button. Compressed, well, for now, we don't want to, kind of do anything for now, right? So it compressed, and then it has a child widget, which will just need an icon. So I'm going to say icons.add, right? And, it should be fine. Make this a const. I'll just add a comma. So when I save that, yeah, so we have this, right? With us, we have this icon here, right? So you can see you can do a lot of stuff. You can the background color, colors dots white, right? That changes the background color. Okay, you can do whatever customization. What we have the focus color, hover color, mouse color, shapes, splash color. You can just play around with all this stuff, right? And see, what it actually does. Okay. Okay, so yeah, we have this, right? To an extent, we are okay. Now, but if you notice, we are actually hard coding this stuff, right? We are actually hard coding this stuff, and of course, that's not what we want to do here. We want to create a widget, right? And in calling this widget here, we want to now pass in when we're calling these widgets here, we want to pass in whatever it is we have created. Now we are the ones actually forcing it, right? We are the ones giving it an actual title, an actual text, or an actual task. So one of the ways we're going to do it is that we're going to kind of make this to take in what a component. So think of it like creating a class that is parameterized, right? So we're going to need a few things here, which we're going to convert this task widgets to. Yeah, let's just convert that, right? So we're going to need basically 3 things. When you look at this, right, we're going to need 3 things actually. The name of the task, right? The name of the task. Another thing we're going to need is to know if the task has been completed, right? And then we also need an unchanged, right? We need to actually check if the status of that checkbox has actually was changed, right? So let's just do with 3 things first. So I'm going to create some final variables here. So I'll say string task name. Please, at any point you can't hear me, just let me know. Task name. Now we need to know if the task has been completed. So I'm going to say create a Boolean variable called task completed, right? And then the unchanged, right? Because if you look at this checkbox, it has this unchanged value. And it is called when the value of the checkbox actually was changed. So and look at the type of function it takes, a Boolean what function. It takes this Boolean function. So that's what I'm going to use to create, placeholder. So just paste this here, and then I'll say unchanged. I'm going to just use the same name, right? So once you do this, of course, you don't have to pass this in. So I'll just say, you can see it says all final variables must be initialized. And the reason is because I want to, so once I create an instance of this task widget, I want to pass in the required this property. So I'll just do that by default. And so let's update this. So here in this unchanged function, I'm just going to pass in what's unchanged, which is the function we were created. Task name is for the string, so I'll just pass in task name here. Okay, this doesn't need a constant, right? Yeah, task completed, right? So it's here for the false. So once the is completed or not, of course, it's completed, you just click the check box. So I'm going to say, and it takes a Boolean. The value here is what Boolean was variable. So I'll say task completed. So you can see it now screams here. It's now screaming here, right? Because we have some name parameters that are required. Okay, so what are those name parameters? So we have task name, which I can pass in as a string because it requires a string. So let me just call it task one. The next thing is looking for is, has it been completed? I'll say true. The next thing is unchanged, the function. For now, we don't have anything, so I'm just going to keep this. Well, it actually needs something, so let me just return. Let me just return true. I hope that will work. I don't want to actually pass in anything now. So sometimes what you can do now is, I actually don't want to pass in anything at this point. So what I can do is, okay, let me even take this out. So let's see. Yeah, okay. So the issue was the const actually. Yeah. So this is just, you can change this to just anything. You can actually change it to whatever you actually would want to change it to. So let's just run this, right, to be sure that everything is working fine. So you can see everything is working fine. Now, the reason you're seeing 3 of it is because I said the count is what 3. So it's going to give me three of the stats. If I say 2, it will give me 2 of it, right? So, but of course, we're not going to hard code this. The total number of tasks should be dependent on what we have created, right? It should be dependent on what we have created. So, but this is just me. So you can see how, I've just made things a bit more dynamic. Okay. So let's continue our UI. Now I want to be able to click on this fact button and, let's have a modal where we can, kind of put in our task, right? So for that, I'm going to create a dialog widget. I need a dialog, and I'm going to create it as a separate widget, right? Because one thing about your dialog is something you can reuse. You can have instances in your application where you need to use use dialogues like maybe 10 times. So you shouldn't always be creating your dialogues. You can just create it once and make it reusable. So we're going to actually do that. So I'm going to just create a stateless widget. I'll call it dialog widget. So Okay. So what I want to return is an alert dialog. That's what I want to return, an alert dialog. Just going to use that now. So let me just show you what it actually does, right? Um, so let's just go to our home page, right? And let me call this. Yeah, let me just put something. So on clicking on that, I want to create a function, right? I'll just create a function to create a new task, right? I want to see that dialog. So let me just create a function called create new task, right? Now the function doesn't exist, right? The function doesn't exist, but we'll create it now. And I can just, VS Code can help me do that. So create function. Now, but I kind of don't want to create this outside. So you can try doing create method. So create method will kind of put it inside here, inside of your class. So let me just take it up here. This is where I want it to be. So what I want to do with this, I want to show a dialog, right? So we have created a dialog, which is an alert dialog, but you need to show it. So to show it, we use the method called show dialog, right? And then what you do in show dialog is to now pass in, whatever dialog you see you have, right? So it takes a context and a builder, right? So what I'm going to do for the builder now, all I'll just do is what pass in, return that. Um, so builder takes a context. So I'm going to return my dialog widget. Sorry, dialog widget. Okay. So let me just run this. Now we haven't actually done anything. It's just an alert dialog, right? We haven't customized it, which we will. But let's see. So you can see when I click on it, you see the screen just kind of dimmed a bit. That's to show that alert dialog has been called, but we have not actually designed the UI, right? When I click out, I've dismissed it. I'll just do that again. You can see that. So let's now kind of give it a UI. Let's now customize it. First of all, what I want to do is I want to give it a height, right? So I'll just say height of, sorry, before you do that, what you can do is, let's say the height is, so let me just show you. We have a lot of things here. We have actions, right? Those are the actions that can be taken on the alert dialog. Let's say submit, cancel, and all those stuff. We have alignment. We also have content. So content is the widget that's the actual what UI, right? So content, right, which is a widget. So I'm just going to use a container for this. Now the container, I'm going to give it a height of 120. So let me just save this, right? And then let's see what happens. So yeah, so you see we have this, right? But I kind of don't like this. This border radius is just too much, right? So the alert dialog, you can actually give it a shape. So for the shape border, I'm going to use a rounded rectangular border. And I don't like this corner radius. So it has a border radius function, you know, uh, parameter, right? That I can use. And let me just say border radius dot circular, and I could just use it. So let me save that. Yeah, yeah, much better, much better. So yeah, that's fine. Okay, so what do we want to do, right? In this our container, right? So let's kind of do, so for the child, let's have a column which has children. So the first thing I want is a text field, right? I want the user to be able to type in something, right? So text field. Um, let's see. Well, that's text field is actually just fine. So let me just show you what we have so far, right? So you can see this is our text field here, right? Though we will customize it, right? This is our text field, okay? Um, so part of that customization is, deciding, what decoration to give it, right? Right. So I'm going to use impute decoration, decorate it. So now let me just save this, right? So I need to pass in certain things for like the border, to use an outline impute border. And let me save that. Yeah, and then we have that, which is actually a bit better, right? Um, Now another thing you can give, let's give a hint text so that the user knows what to actually what to do. So I'll say, it actually takes a string. So I'll just say create a task. So let me save that and then click out. This is an active state. So let me close this and then so you can see this is a hint, create a task. When I click on it, it's now when I start typing, it goes out, right? When I delete, it comes back. Okay. So that's one. Another thing I want to create is a button, right? I want to create a button, but I want to have two of it, right? So let me create another widget called button widget. I'll just show you guys how to componentize stuff, right? I'll try to be doing that. So let me just call it dialog button dot start, right? I'll just call it dialog button dot start, right? And basically what I will just do is just let's create a button. I'm just going to use the material button. So let me stateless widgets, dialog button. Yeah, saw that coming. Thank you. So I'm going to return a material button. Material button. Yeah. For the oppressed, well, we don't want to do anything yet. Okay. And let's save that. Okay. So let me just call it here in our dialog widget. Let me just call it here, right? And let's import it. Okay, so when I save that, okay, so we're not seeing anything. So we're actually not done. Let's do some stuff here now. Like the text, the child rather, child or should be a text. So let's just say submit, right? Submit. I'll save that and then, right? So we can't still see anything. So let me give it a color. And then I'm going to say theme dot off. I want to get from my theme. This is also another place to get colors. So I'm just showing you a lot of other things. You have a lot of colors here, right? There's dialog background color. Let's see what that looks like. Right. So this is what it looks like, right? Of course, we don't want. Let's see what the primary color we have. Yeah, and this color looks great. So let's just do it blue. let's just I don't know which one is here. So I'm just going to use. Let me just use. So I just want you guys to know how to see how to use this point. Let's just manage this for now. Not really doing much stuff, but this is just another piece to get. And I'll teach you guys things how to create default colors that you just personal colors you want to use, right, and stuff like that. And this is how you actually access it, especially when you created your own. I'll show you, but let's just use this. You can change it anytime. So now the thing is, one of the reasons I'm creating this because I need two of these buttons, right? So I don't need to now see the way I just designed this, created this material button, something like this, right? And then I'll now come here, assuming I'll now come here and just do, um, let's close out this stuff. Okay, so imagine I now come here, paste this, all right. I'll now have to, paste another one. You understand? So it's kind of just, and the fact is, once I create this here, this material button in this file, I can't reuse it. You understand? I can't reuse it in case I need it in another file. So that's why we go with this. Okay, so I need two of this. All I can just do is just duplicate this particular one, and you see, kind of looks a bit neater. So when I save this, so we have an overflow. Of course, I don't need the buttons like this. I need them, kind of in a row. So I'm just going to, kind of bring in a row, children, and then paste them. Okay, and then there we have this. So I kind of move two of them to the end, right? I want two of them to kind of go to, go to the end and not just be, there. Please just confirm on the chat you can still hear me. So let's say I'm going to use one of the properties of the row is the main axis alignment, right? So you can check this out, right? This just creates a horizontal array of what children. Okay, so I'm going to use main axis alignment.end. So that should send both of them to the end. There, you can see that. Then I need a space between them, so I'm just going to add a sized box with a width. Now I'm going to use it now because it's not a height thing. I'm going to use sorry, not here. Rather, because it's column, you have to use height, but if it's row, you use width. Right? So let me just say width of 8.0. Okay, add a comma there. And then okay, we don't need this actually since we have a const above here, right? So let's see. So yeah, that gives us this. Okay. So
okay, so yeah, so now that we have been able to, kind of do this, so if you notice, both buttons are just carrying submit because when we created them, we kind of had coded, those things. And if we are going to reuse, we need to allow, we need to really allow that, okay, wherever it is called, I can use it the way I want. I can pass in the necessary properties the way I want it to. Now, so one of the things, of course, that I need to change here is the text. The text will not always be submit, right? So I need to make that dynamic. Secondly is the action when a button is clicked. It may not always be the same. Not may, it will not always be the same, right? So that means we need to actually pass in a dynamic, a function parameter, right? A parameter, it needs to take in a function also. Yeah, there are other things. You can decide to make the background color to be dynamic. So that means you choose the background color. You can decide to make the text color dynamic also, right? So let's just head into the dialog button. So the submit here, we need a parameter for that. So I'm going to create one final. I'm going to say, let me just say text, right? Sorry, final string text. Now we also need a function, right? This unpressed, what kind of function does it require? This is the kind of function it requires, right? So I can just actually copy this. In fact, I can copy the whole of this, right? Right, and then just say final this. So instead of passing this here, I'm just going to say unpressed, right? And then instead of doing this, I'm going to say text, right? So of course, we need to initialize the final variables here. So Okay. So you can see now it is actually screaming here. So we need it has a named parameter. So one of the named parameter there is the text. So the text first one should be, for me, I want it to be left, right. So let's just do save. I don't know which one I want, whether it's left or right, but let's just at least do one. Text. So this one should be cancel. So let me save that. So let's see which one appears first. Okay, save and then cancel. Okay. So let's see. Okay, so something happened. Let's check our primary color dark. Seems that this thing has changed, right? So I have to look into that. But let's just move on first. So you can note, if you notice something, it's not forcing me to call the onPressed function, right? And the reason is because when we created it, the parameter there, right? You can see we used this. So this is nullable. We're basically just saying that, you know what, it's possible that the user, or when you initialize this dialog box, it's possible you don't need that onPressed function. So there's no need to force me to kind of make use of it, right? You don't have to force me to, kind of make use of it. So that's the reason. If I take out this, right, it means that I have to make this what's required, right? And you can see it means that I have to pass it now. I have to give it, but that's not the case. So, okay, so yeah, so let me just kind of restart this, just to be sure that everything is going smoothly, right? So while that is, yeah, okay, so yeah, so I kind of don't know why why that is. Let me just see. Colors.blue. So something probably has changed. I'll figure out later, right, in our alert dialog. So, but let's move on and just do things. We don't have much time. Okay, so what else do we need to do, right? So for the actions, right, of course, I'm going to need to kind of do something, right? I'm going to need to, do something. Now, two things we need when for this, we need two actions here. When I click on save, I should be able to save a task, right? When I click on save, I should be able to save a task, right? That means that's a function. When I click on cancel, I should be able to cancel a task. That's also an action, right? So it means that these two buttons, they take an action, right? So let's come here, right? And, and just do, let's do something on, so they exist on the widget, right? So let's, dialog widgets, right? So these are dialog widgets, okay? So we want to take two actions, right? We want to take some actions here, and the action is to save and to cancel. So in here, I'm going to create now we want to pass in a function, right? Because we need to take an action. So we're not going to use what we're going to use, we're going to use what we call a void callback, right? We're going to use a void callback. Okay, so this is actually just like it's kind of like a dynamic way of passing in a function, right? Because you're not specific as to what exactly, just a more like a more dynamic way actually. That's why the type is dynamic, right? So void callback, I'll say on save. That means when I click on save, I want to call a save function. In fact, I need it for two of them, so I could do this and say on cancel, right? But I think I can also do this, right? Let me see that where I can also do that. So let's see. So let's add that here. Good. So let's update our to do, meaning that when we create this dialog widgets, right here, we need to pass in certain things. Now, before then, our dialog button here has an unpressed, right? So when you press the save button, what do we want to do? We want to call the let's see, where is it? On save. We want to call the on save, right? So let's take out this const here. And then when you call the cancel button, when you click on it, the unpressed of it, we want to what? Cancel. On cancel, right? So you can over it, you can see it's a what? Void function also. Okay, so yeah, that's basically that. Just trying to create some reusable stuff, right? So of course it's shouting here because it now when we now called this dialog widget here, right? It's expecting this us to pass in this, right? But of course, this is not how we are going to, kind of do it, right? So let's just be sure we have created this. So all we now need to do is to start carrying out the actual stuff, right? So let's go back to, let's see. So let me go back to this our task widgets. So if you can see, we are hard coding stuff here, and I don't want to hard code stuff, right? I don't want to hard code these, these things, right? I don't want to hard code it. So instead, what we're going to do is, I want to, pass in an actual, value from a list, right? I want to pass in an actual value from a list. So let me just create a list here, just above this, right? And let me just call it task list. I just want to create a dummy listing, right? And the task list is going to contain, a list of, items, right? Okay, so this is the first one. So I'm going to say task 1. And then I want this particular task to have a value of false, right? So the false now would be that the task has not been done, right? To mean that the task has not been done. And then let's say task 2. Let's just say this one has been done. So we see the difference, right? Okay, so this is just a dummy what task. So with this now, here, instead of hard coding 2, I'll just say task list dot length. So it will give me the length of that word list, right? It will give me the length of that word list. And then here, instead of saying task 1, right, I'm expecting the name. All I'll just do is get the task list, which is a list, and then I'll pass in the index. So the index points to the what look the particular location, like the index 1, the position of that what element, right? So go to the position and then give me the first value there. So if you look at this, the first value, it goes, this is the first item on this list. This is the second item of this list. So this is a list, this task list is a list, and inside it actually has a list. So what this means is this here, right? It means go to the index, which it will start from 1, right? It will start from the index of what 1, and then give me the first what element there. So 0 is what task 1. So this is the first index, right? And this is the first what element, right? And then for the task completed, right, which is a Boolean, I'll say go to the task list, go to that particular index, right, and then give me the what second what element, right, which is what this one, false. Okay, so this let me just pass in this because I want to run it so that it doesn't give me, any error, and to allow me to run stuff. So on save, on cancel, I'm just going to give empty. I'm not going to actually pass in anything for it to do, right? Just to clear out the error. So let's just clear that out, right? So you can see we have an error, okay, void on save cancel. So it's not actually returning anything, and that's actually not what we want. So we don't actually need to do that, right? We need to kind of do stuff. So let me just I kind of don't want to get into this at this point, right? But let's let's see. Let's actually just do, because we need to show. So let me just close this. Let me comment this out, right? See, so no such method, no constructor dialog widgets. So let me just rerun this to be sure that the error we're having is not, talking about something else. Okay. Okay, good. So you can see it gave us what this, right? The first one is what false. That's why this is not checked. The second one is true. So that's basically what it did here. So in building that list, we gave it a list, and the length of that list is just 2, because they're just 2 items, right? And then we are returning the task widget. The name, it said, okay, fine, go to the first item on that list, which is also a list on its own, and give me the first element. And the first element in this list is the what task name. And the second element is what false, which is what at this what position. Okay, so that's actually that. So let's now do some much more interesting stuff, like creating a task, and the likes. Okay, so to create a task, of course, we want to kind of click on this floating action button, and then we want to show the dialog, right? So we have this create new task function, right? So let's now really look into it. So we need to create new task, we need to save a task, we need to also do deleting of tasks if we have enough time. But let's just focus on creating a new task. First of all, we need to see the dialog, right? Now, on saving the dialog, I want to save task, which is a function, right? So let me create that function here, void save task, right? Now, what happens when I want to save a task? Now, we talked about stateless and stateful widgets, right? And we talked about the importance of both, what two of them actually want to do. So I want to be able to, when you save a task, when you save a particular, you want to be able to see it, right? You want to be able to see it in that list almost immediately, right? So that means we need to watch out for the state of the application of this screen. So I'm going to now convert this into a stateful widget. How do you do that? You just come here to the stateless, right? You can see that the stateless widget, right, does not require mutable state. So it's a widget that describes part of the UI by building other widgets and the likes of that. Okay, so but it does not listen to what state. It does not require any change. Okay, but what we want to do requires a change, because I need if I create another task, I want to be able to see the third task, see the fourth task. Even when I delete, I want to see that it has gone out of the screen, right? So let's change this. We'll learn about state management and a much better way to do this. But let's just convert this. So I'll click on this and then bulb here, or Alt Enter, depends on your IDE or your operating system. It's in a Mac. So convert to stateful widgets. Okay. So with these stateful widgets now, in my save task, I can now call what we call a set state. Right? You can see this here. So this set state is going to listen. So you can see it notifies the framework that the internal state of the object has changed. So when I call this set state, whatever I do there, if there's a change, to notify and rebuild, my UI so that it will kind of display the new state of that particular UI based on the change. So when I want to save a task, what should I want to basically just add to this, right? I want to just add to the list that I already have. So I'm going to say task list dot add. Now, what do we want to add? We want to add, whatever the user is going to type in, right? That's what we want to add. But we have not even factored in, getting that value. So we want to add something. So I'm just going to put this string here for now. And want to also add, remember, this represents the name, right? Based on how our list is here. And then I'm going to pass in false by default, because any task you create by default, it should be what? False, right? It should be false by default. So, but remember, we are adding a list to this list. So that's why you can see we have this error here. So I'll just wrap it, in a list. So that's what we have here. This is a list of what lists. So once you're done with that, right? So we need to get, let me click on this. We need to get this dialog, right? Now let me go to our dialog widgets. So we have a text field. Remember we talked about controllers, right? Yeah, I think we did. So if we want to get, what's it called? If you want to get an input from the user, you need a controller, right? You actually need a controller to do that. So in our text field here, right, we need to be able to get that controller. So I'm going to create an alert dialog. I'm going to create a variable, let's say final of type text editing controller, and then I'm just going to call it controller. So what I'll do is, in the controller parameter of this text field, which is what is in charge of getting the inputs, I'll now pass in the controller that I created, which is this, right? But I think the issue is the const, yeah. And then initialize this here. So it means that whenever I want to use this dialog widget, I need to pass in a controller, right? So here, I need to pass in a controller, right? I need to pass in a controller to be able to make use of it. So to do that, I need to just create a quick instance. So I'll say final. Let me use this because I want to use a private variable of type text editing controller. So I'll just pass this here. So what does this do? It means that, so whatever the user is going to type, it's going to get it, right? And then pass it here. So instead of saying value, I'm now going to use that controller to get what the user typed by saying controller.text. So that will give me whatever the user actually typed. Okay, so yes, so let's see. So the reason we just did this, so these are void, right? We're just saying show dialog, right? So we're passing our context, and then we're returning the the dialog widgets with the controller, our save task, and on cancel. For now, we don't do anything first, we'll figure that out. So let's see. I hope I did not create new task. Okay, so just to be sure, okay. So when I click on it, you can see nothing happens, right? So let's see what the issue is. So these are floating action button. These are create new task. So something is wrong. So let me confirm that this. So this is one of the ways you debug stuff, right? Let me just print this. So if I see this in my console, it means that the button is actually working, but it's just that this function is not being called. So let me click on it. Yeah, so it's working now. Well, I guess something was, right, it was a delay on my VS Code, and our colors are back. So yes, so what we want to do? So whatever the user types in here, right? What do we want to do? When I type let's say task 3, when I click on save, I want to call this function called save. And what does this function do? It now takes this what, it just what adds whatever I type, which is getting it from here, right? And giving it a false, meaning it has not been done. So the checkbox will not be checked. And it adds it to that what list. So let's see if that works. And remember, we are using set state. So we kind of want to update the list. So let's see if that works. So when I click on save, right? Well, nothing happens. So let's debug that and see why nothing is happening, right? So save task, set state. Okay. So one thing you want to do when you save, because if you notice, when you click on this button, of course, after taking an action, the what's it called? The alert dialog should actually dismiss. I don't want to have to click somewhere else for it to dismiss. So one of the ways you can do that is by saying using the navigator class. So I'll say navigator dot of context, right? And then I'll just say dot pop. So this will just kind of close it out and take me back to the task click screen, right? So save. So it's possible we are not actually. So let's look at this. Is the alert. This is the dialog, right? This button just calls this. These are task widgets. So we need to confirm. Okay, our dialog widgets. So let's come here. Okay, so our save calls the unsave. So we are good to go, which is a void callback, right? So I don't know if this so signature. Okay, so yeah, we're good. Now when we are calling it here on save, let's see if that's the case. Sorry, trying to save that. So let me click out. Again, let's be sure that this function is actually working, right? So I'm just going to print save called, just to print to the console. Like I said, this is one of the ways you kind of debug to know if something is working. So when I click on this, so let me just click out and close this, and then let's try this again. Let me just save. Sometimes I may have to do a restart if that's the case. So task 3. So save is actually what called, right? So save is actually called. So another way to debug, so it's just that this task is, maybe it's saving, but we are not actually seeing it. So let's go to our list here, right? So this is our list. So we are getting the task widgets and the whole of that, right? But let's see if we're missing out anything. So it doesn't seem like we are, right? Doesn't seem like we are. So let's see. So we're adding to, let me check. So let me just do a restart, just in case we added something that is not reflecting, right? Just in case we added something that is not reflecting. Okay, so I think it has. Okay. Okay, so our button is called, but the save is not being called. So let me do let's check our dialog. Let's check our dialog widgets first. So and then let's see if we're missing out anything. Let me do this. I don't think it is, but just to be on the safe side. Okay. save that. So let's just cross check. So when it's on save, when the byte save, so we want to call function. Okay. Then when it is cancel, okay. Okay, well that's good. So let's check the button on pressed task widget, which is this completed, unchanged. Okay, good. So let's start from this state. Okay, set states, task list. Okay. Okay, this save a task. Okay, which is just task list.add. Okay. Okay, so let's try this again. Okay, so let me go inside this function and print this again. So like I said, this is one of the ways you debug, right? So let's say save task call. Okay, so I'll click save again. So you can see that it's not actually calling this function, right? It's just printing this, right? So let me add this and then let's save that. Then let's see. Okay, so it's so you can see the our save button is not calling the function, and this is how you should. This is how you debug. You know, whenever you're shouting something is not working, something is not working, always try to take it step by step to know where exactly the issue what is, right? So you can see it's printing this because I am clicking on this function, but this particular one is not being what called, right? That particular function is not being called. So the question is, why is it not being called? That's what we have, right? First of all, what we are doing is we want to create a new task and we are showing our dialog. We're passing our context, or return our dialog widget. We're passing our controller, right? And then we have a save function, right? Okay, so yeah, and then I'll cancel, which is fine. So let me just do this. Okay, this is still fine because I need two things. In the actual sense, I don't need to pass in. I must not actually pass this but that's that. So when you're creating, once you're done creating, it should what save it, right? And this is our save task function, right? We are calling our set states, and then we are adding, and then we are, the context we are popping. So everything should look okay. So let's just do some minor stuff, and then let me make sure that everything is fine. So this calls it creates new task, right? And then our list view is fine also. Okay. Okay, so let's just rerun this again. And see if everything is fine. Okay. Let me hold on. Let me rerun this. I don't know why it's popping up. It shouldn't show. Okay. We started. So let's see. Okay, so our function is not still called, so we have some serious work to do right now. Okay, so let's take this again. Um, in our to do home, we have a task list, right? And what we have these two, which is actually showing by default, and then we have a function to save a task, and saving the task is basically just adding to this list, which is what we are doing, right? It's just to add to the list, and then this should, after adding it to the list, so something, for some reason, this function is not called, right? This function is not called, and we need to figure out why this function is not being called. So let me see. This is called, and then this is called, but this is not called. So I'm trying to see if somewhere we are having two things. So let me do something. Let me change this to, let me just rename it. Let me just rename this. Okay, so on saving it, when it, okay, so let me just rename it. I need to be sure that it's not holding a particular state that is not supposed to hold. So still having the same issue. Okay. Yeah, I think today's a day of bugs. So you guys now see how, but what bugs can actually do to you. So let's go to this alert dialog. Oh, okay, okay, okay. Okay, so we have a row button, takes a function, hold on save, right? And then it takes another one. Let's start with, okay. So this is our alert dialog, which is actually fine because as far as we are able to, we are passing in this void callback and it actually works. So that's the dialog widget. Now, but the thing is, when we show this dialog, we are returning the dialog and we are returning this function. Now let me check this function here. This our press function is meant to be. Let me see what we have. Oh, okay, okay. So I think well, that shouldn't really be the case, but let's do something. These are bots. This is expecting, it's not really the case, Sha. It's not. It's expecting a dynamic function. I can decide to do this instead of the void callback, but I don't think that's the case because that's what this compressed was expecting. Then let's go to, let me just go to the dialog button. Okay, okay, good. So then let me go to, where is our dialog button? Let me use a void callback here instead of a function. Let me use a void callback here, and then let's require this required. Okay, so now on pressed, so let me so the dialog button. So back in our widgets, right? So let's now make changes in our widget. So back in our widgets, right? We now need to pass in, our unsave function. Now, when we created this should now be a void callback. This should be a void callback. right? And then on save and cancel. Okay, so let's see if we're all good. Okay, then on the home, so okay, we have that, which is a void function, cancel a void function. Okay, so let me restart this. Let's restart and see what we have. Okay, so let's see. Okay. So we now have this initialize this, which actually shouldn't even be so save called. Okay, but this one is not yet called. Okay, it's not yet called. Oh, okay, okay. So yeah, I think this is the issue, right? So when we converted to stateful widgets, right? We did not, these things should not be here anymore, right? Yeah, so yeah, that's actually the right. Yeah, okay. Let me see. It should be before the override, right? Yes. So that's why that function is not that should, I think they should fix it, because we're actually having everything inside of the widget, right? So that function is definitely not, it shouldn't even work actually. Come to think about it. So yeah, so you can see that we can look if you can see behind, right? It has actually been created, but you know the alert dialog is still there, right? So yeah, we need to kind of close out that dialog, and then we need to also clear this text because it shouldn't be here again. How we can do that is by clearing the controller. Can just say controller dot clear, right? Okay. Now you can also bring this after clearing. It should now pop that. So that should now. Okay, so yeah, we're just actually putting stuff in the wrong place. That was why. So let's close that. Let's restart. So we started to actually clean out this task 3 that we created, because we're not actually saving. We're just doing kind of like a demo stuff. We're not really saving stuff to our local. We'll talk about storage later. That will be probably in our next class. So task 3. Okay, save. So it's alert dialog is still being a bit stubborn, right? So let's see. I think there's another. Let me see, like editor dot. Okay, let's try this one. Right, so I think this is cleared. Right, so sorry, task 4. Yeah, so that clears it. Okay, so we're good. So we can see, can create another one, call it task 5, save, right, and that clears. So we're able to, so I can take out this print statement. I'm done debugging. So you try not to forget when you're done debugging, right? You can take out your you can see it says don't invoke print in production code, right? Okay, so yeah, that's basically that, right? Yeah, that's actually that. So we can actually delete a task, right? I don't know if we'll have the time to do that, but let's now focus on how can we change. I'm done with a task. How can I check it, right? How can I check it? So I'm going to create a function to do that. Let me call it change or finish task or task completed, right? Now, what basically we want to do, right, is that we want to just change the state of this from true to either true to false or false to true. That's basically what we want to do. So what I'm going to say here is this function should take a Boolean value, which I want to make nullable in case, and an index so that we know the particular task, right? We're dealing with a list, so we know the particular task we want to, kind of complete, right? So I'll call my set state again because I want things to be updated. And what I'm just going to do is I'm going to say call my to-do list, task list, right? Of a particular index, right? Get the second element there, right? Remember, this is what for the true or what false. So what we're going to do is I'm now going to assign it to the opposite, to the negation of it. So if it was true, if the value here in that particular index, let's say the first one, if the value of the checkbox is true, right? Passing the opposite, which is false, right? So basically what I'll just do is I'll copy this, paste here, and just add this operator. So that will give us, so if it was true, that will give us false. If it was false, that will give us what? True. Okay, so where are we actually using this? That is in our unchanged in the task widget, right? Remember our task widget, which is basically this, right? So we have this unchanged function that we're passing in the checkbox, right? Which is called when the value of the checkbox should change. So we actually want to make that change. So in your changed here, so I'm not going to, instead of saying P or just call it value, is anything you can, and then I don't want this, since I'm just going to call one function, which is task completed. Task completed, and then it takes the value, right? Whichever value and the index. Okay, so let me save that. And so you can see, can what check and what uncheck, right? I can say I'm done with task 1. I can say I'm done with task 3, but I'm yet to do task 4. I can say I'm done with task 1, 2, 3. So that's actually how you change that, right? Okay, so I don't know if we have the time. Let me just see. Can we quickly do that? Deleting a task, right? So to delete a task, I'm going to, I just say, so this is me showing you guys packages. So there are packages that you can use to do certain things, right? Like now I want to be able to click on this and slide to delete a task. So I'm going to go to popspec.yaml. I want to import a package or a dependency, and I'll put that under this dependency, not dev dependency, under this. I'll just click enter, and I'll just paste it. Flutter slidable, right? That's what we're going to be using for the slide effect, to give us that slide effect. So once you do that, of course, it's actually going to get that online, so you can see Flutter pub get running. So you just have to wait for a while for it to get it, so we can actually use it. So yeah, I think it's done, right? Yeah, I think it's done. So let's use it, right? I'm going to just use it in the what's it called? I'm going to use it in our task widget. right? Yes, I'll use it in our task widget. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap this whole widget with this slidable package, right? I'm going to wrap it with slidable. So I'll wrap the container instead. So that I'll still keep that padding with a widget, and the widget is slidable, right? I hope it has been. Okay, yeah, so I'll just import it. Okay, good. So just because of time, so it has what we call the end action pane, right? So basically, you can just check out, probably just drop the link. So this is just a widget, right? That is shown when the user drags the slidable to the left or to the top, right? So this from the end, right? Because we want to move from here down to this place, okay? So it's basically just a widget, right? And the widget it takes is what we call an action pane that has motion property and children. So for motion, there are some motions there on their documentation, but we'll just use stretch motion for this class. And then for the children basically is the action, right? There. So I'm just going to, it has what we call is a list. So say slidable action. Yes. So what happens when we slide, we want to delete a note. Now this is going to be a function which I will create. Okay, I'll create that function, but I'll pass it here. Remember, this is in the widget. So I'm just going to still say this same thing, right? Because this onPressed, you can see, okay, so look, this is it. This onPressed, this is the kind of function it takes, right? So I'll just copy this. This is the kind of type of function. So paste this here, right? And then onPressed is the name. So I'm just still going to make it onPressed, right? And then pass it here. Okay. So this should be onPressed. Okay. What other action? There are some other things you can do here. There are a lot of things here. Color background. Don't worry about that because I haven't put. You can see there are some things I've not done in my actions here, right? Like an icon. The icon is null for each label and all those stuff. So for the icon, I'm going to say icons.delete. It's already a type of icon, right? The type here is icon data, so I just need to pass in the icon, which is from our class icons.delete. Yeah. So background color, right? Let's use a colors.red. Do we have colors.red? And then let me give it, so let me just show you. So let me just save that, right? So you can, this is the effect. So you can see when I click and drag, you can see that, right? You can see this effect, but it has these sharp edges. So let me give it a border radius. I'll say border radius dot circular. Let's say 8. So let me save that. Yeah, so at least it has this corner view. So you can see this now, right? For all of them. So what we want to do now is when you click on this icon, you should be able to delete a note, right? So let's now go and pass in the function here, right? The function here is nullable, means that you do not actually pass it, but we need it. So I'll go to my home. Here, we have onPressed. So it's best to actually name things well. So let's actually, instead of naming it onPressed, let's name it on, let's just name it on delete, because that's the action we want to take, right? So let me just rename it to on delete. So on delete. Okay, for some reason it's not. Okay. Sorry, my laptop is just taking a bit of time. So on delete. So on delete, what do we want to do? We want to delete, a particular you know, um, task, right? That's what we want to do. We want to delete a particular task. So I'm going to create a function to delete a task. We have a function to create a task. So void delete task. Okay, so what do we want to do, when we want to delete a task? We actually need to know the particular task. So that's the index. So I'm going to say index, of course, positioning is integers. So what do I want to do? Of course, set state, right? So that we can update stuff. I'm just going to say task list dot remove at is a list. So you can remove at a particular what index, right? A particular position. So here I'm just going to say call my function, which is delete task, and the index is passed from this builder. So let's save this. And yeah, so let's delete this task 5, or let's delete task 1. We are done with task 1. So when I slide, I click on this, you can see it's deleted. I slide, I click on this, deleted, slide, I click on this, it's deleted, right? So yeah, that's actually that, right? So we don't have much time. So in our next class, before we go into maybe Git, right? Yeah, we'll probably just do Git, because moving forward, I want to be able to send you. I want you guys to be a bit more standard. So we'll do Git in the next class. But before then, I will now show you guys how we can, use local storage, whereby this is saved to your phone. Because now, if I rerun this application, in fact, let me even do something. I can just say that the first time there shouldn't be anything, right? When I rerun it. So you notice that if I restart this application, right, or maybe minimize and close it out, it actually will not, you won't see anything on this list, right? You won't actually see anything, it's empty. So whatever you created, it's not really stored, like actually stored per se. We're not really storing it. So we'll learn a bit of, I'll just show us a way to store our data. So let's say task 1. Let's be sure it works. So yeah, I can also delete this. So yes, that's for today. So like I said, in the next class we'll look at storage, how we can store it, and then we will also go into GitHub, right? And what GitHub is all about. So any question before we round up? Any question? Yes. Yeah, I expected the question. David, go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Please, how did you import that dependency?
Okay, you can mute your mic now. Okay, so what you just need to do, right, is to
Hello.
can you hear me? Hello, can anybody hear me?
Okay, I can hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, so you just go to your pubspec.yaml. This is the dependency, Flutter slidable, but you can just, when you go to Google and type Flutter slidable package, right? It will take you to the Flutter pub.dev website, where you can actually see, let me just show you there. Let me just bring this here, right? So you can see every package that you actually need, every dependency you actually need, right? So this is it, and you get to see every feature it has. So this is actually it, but this latest version, you can actually see when you come to installing, right? That's where you now get to see the updated, version, the latest version, which is 3.1.0. So it's either you add it this way or you just run this on your terminal, Flutter pop add, Flutter slidable. And yet, they get to also show you how you can make use of it. Like this is an example. When you read this, kind of like an example, and it shows you a lot of stuff that is available. You can have an action to delete. You can have an action to share. So let me just copy this share, right? I don't know if let me copy that share and then let's just see what that does, right? So that's another action on pressed. So let me just, I don't want to create anything. I'm just going to use the same function. I don't want to create anything, right? I'm not going to try to delete anything, but let's just see how it looks like, right? So when I click on this, let's create a task 1, save. So when we slide, you can see we have 2 options. Of course, you can style it the way you want. You can style it yourself, but you can see we have 2 options, which means I can share a note if I have a function to actually want to do that. I hope that answers your question. Dele, you had a question. I need to round up.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the dependency, and I think that's what he asked.
Okay,
But
okay.
I would just like to say that you should help us upload this quickly because I was not able to follow with code. So I was just watching.
Okay.
So as to be
Yeah,
able
that's
to
fine. That's fine.
do the answer.
Okay, Joseph.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Is there any
Yeah.
way we can get the code for this
What?
class?
You can get
The
it
code.
if you're are you on GitHub?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so that means I don't need to teach GitHub now, right? Since most of you are there.
You will teach it though.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I'll upload it to GitHub. I'll share the link with you guys.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, so I think that'll be all. Thank you guys very much for staying to the end. I hope you learned something, right? Once the video is uploaded, practice what we have just done, and then yeah, in our next class we'll get to move a bit much further. Okay, thank you very much. Have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you, sir.